Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to Cyber Witch. I'm Bishop Orlee, and this is my channel about the occult, demonology, and my life as a professional witch here in New Orleans. Today, I'm back with the guy who loves to fill me with ideas, Jon Vermilion. Hello, Jon is an expert on a lot of different stuff, including aliens and esoteric physics. And we have been having some really fantastic discussions over the past several episodes of these live streams. So if you are new here, please be sure to check out the other previous episodes as well. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. And today we're talking about having experiences with the spiritual world outside of doing rituals.
Mhm. Yes. And yeah, I don't, I think a lot of people start doing rituals because they're looking for a spiritual experience. When really there's no ritual that needs to be involved to have like spiritual experiences. And I think if we dive into the topics of what meditation and like certain mantra work, and you're very accustomed to doing mantra work, and how we tune ourselves into this a specific frequency, which we've been talking about in previous shows, and how this actually just starts to naturally happen through miracles. And I know through my personal experience, most of my what I would consider heightened or spiritual experiences come from either dreams or deep states of meditation. So when it comes to ritual, I mean, I look at ritual more as I'm going to do this with a specific spirit so I can have maybe this outcome. It's more of a regimented kind of practice to it. But when we actually get into having spiritual communication and higher, I guess, higher contact with like higher energetic beings, we're going to find that more in the realm of like meditation and mantra work and various energetic alignments with our energetic body into the higher astral and even beyond, which, in my work, which is very energetic overall. It has a lot to do with the energy body and the chakra systems and moving yourself out of physical awareness. And this is how we have these deeper spiritual experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, I really enjoy doing rituals as well. I've always had an affinity toward things, even in regards to the performing arts. So, all artistic expression toward the spirit is super nourishing to do. However, it's not the be all and end all of like
Mhm.
the way to have contact with things, because the whole idea is like we put in the work and we train ourselves through doing all these different things, rituals, mantras, what have you, stuff that's actual work. And there was a person who commented, and like shout out to whoever that person was, like spot on. They're like, they call it practice for a reason, because it takes
Mhm.
practice of doing things for us to get good at it. But that will cause our experience of reality to shift, where we can open ourselves up to spiritual communication without doing rituals. So just like how I work as a tarot reader, I'm having spirits communicate to me without doing a ritual, for
Right.
example. And it's not an easy thing to activate, but there's so much that we can do to help with that.
Right. And, to become a good tarot reader, it's not just knowing what the cards are and being really open to what the cards are saying. A good tarot reader has an active, energetic body. So the more your awareness moves into your energetic body and your conscious awareness moves into your energetic body, the more that we're just consciously aware of these alternate dimensions or these other beings or these other energies trying to interact with us. So when we tune our psychic ability, whether it be through tarot, meditation, visualization, what have you, you tend to become more aware of that energetic body. And with my stuff, with a lot of the whole alien and ET stuff, this is going throughout the day. It's not like can become aware of them throughout the day. It's not even like just in the dream time. And when your energetic body is very active, you're just aware of that influence upon it. And that to me is a spiritual experience because it's coming from this other thing that's really not us, but it's not an exalted state. I would say it's not like a meditative, enlightened experience by any means, not all the time. But when our psychic perceptions are ignited and the energetic body is kind of like ignited with that, like that fire, if you will, um, we just become more aware of these things, and it all day becomes kind of like a synchronistic miracle in a sense if you're that aware. So, especially with my work, that's what it's about: is becoming hypersensitive, really about your energetic body. And when you are that, you can actually become very, very psychic.
It's truly amazing how this actually does activate a life of miracles, of like literal miracles happening to you when you open yourself out to this. It's like the whole thing that people say, you know, for those who have eyes to see, there's so much more
Mhm.
going on than ordinary reality, but most people just aren't able to pay attention to that.
No. And it's just where our awareness is. I mean, if we're super focused in the mundane world, and our consciousness is nowhere near focusing on anything spiritual or even in self-betterment or anything like that, um, you're not going to be very aware of anything except that shit in front of you. It's not going to be you know, it's you need to have that separation from the mundane into the non-mundane or the non-physical, if you will, to really create that kind of blend of the worlds. And like I said, when we're more aware of it within our psychic body, that's how we become more aware of, like, hey, this is not my thought, or this is not my energy, or there is something in this room with me. Like, what is it? Is it a goat, grandpa? Like, what is it that's actually here? And then we can use that inner perception to be able to do it. I kind of let life. I had an old, actually, an old Hindu guru that I used to work with. This was like years and years and years ago, and she was absolutely brilliant. And she told me one day, she goes, "Let life be a meditation." And when I started looking at like my daily life as a meditation, like I could recite a mantra literally all day if I wanted to. Like, I'm just at home, I'm cleaning. What's stopping me from doing this mantra 3,000 times while I'm cleaning? You know, so it's where we pull our focus and our direction, is to be able to say how we can allow this kind of stuff to start transpiring outside of a typical ritual, you know, where we don't really have to set space. We are the space, you know, where we don't have to do the offering because we are the offering. You know, our time and our thing that we're putting into it is the offering to a point. And of course, they both have their own benefit, you know, but it's I guess you could say one's more selfish than the other, because the other one you're working with a spirit outside of yourself, while the latter, what I'm talking about, is actually working with your spirit, or the spirit that is inside your body.
That's such a great point, and I think it ties perfectly into one of the main reasons why we wanted to have this topic at hand today, which is the re-release of Asaya Alexa,
Mhm.
because this material is something that you discuss very heavily in your book, and I just helped you edit it all.
You
So
did.
it's going to be out again like in
End
the near
end of
future. So
August? Yeah, I think end of August.
yeah,
So right now it's on pre-order till the end of August. Yeah.
so you can pre-order Asaya Alexa on Vermilion's website, the Violet Gateway. I edited it for him over the past while, and it has such helpful information to anyone who really wants to get in contact with the energy of your own body and learn how to do so many different exercises and understand the various levels of energies that are affecting you at all times. This will give you way better mastery over your spiritual life, but then also just your day-to-day life, because
Yeah.
you're going to understand reality in a far more deep way.
Yeah. You know, because you know, my book's kind of like you're a soul or a spirit incarnated in this physical vessel, you know, and how do we how do we utilize the energetic body? How do we move with it? How do we shift it from a physical perspective off to the non-physical perspective? You know, things like bilocation and all those kind of things, those are spiritual experiences. And there's ways, even in states of meditation, where you can move your awareness from your physical state all the way to a non-physical state where you're somewhere else, and things like remote viewing and all these kind of things, these are our spiritual abilities. So instead of like looking for almost like a spiritual experience, we are the spiritual experience in the body. And through my work, I try to connect people to you know their themselves, so they can actually be really realistic, their own deity. We encompass all these aspects of gods or goddesses. We encompass these things. So if we can align ourselves energetically through our energetic body, tune to that frequency, and inherit those qualities, and become things that we could do.
Yeah, I think your book will truly help people because so many of the viewers of this channel are really into deep, extreme, hardcore ceremonial magic.
Mhm.
And we spend so much time focusing on different entities or aspects that are technical details that we often will get lost in what is important in training our own selves energetically.
Mhm.
So it really helps so much. And especially because I did edit the book for you, so I know it like super thoroughly and
Yeah,
deeply now. It would really mean a lot to me if the people who support this channel would also go and pre-order Vermilion's book. It's really, really good. The Violet Gateway, which is linked in the video description. So if you could all please pre-order the book, it would really mean a lot to me and help support his work.
Mhm.
It's great. It's a great book.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it was, compiled and written through experience, and, actually applying the methods in it, for years and years and years. I mean, I was writing that book for probably about close to probably 13 years. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah, definitely a lot of that. And that a lot of that was dream time, and that just proves that even in our dream time, it's still kind of a physical reality. So even when people talk about dreams, it's hard for me to be like, to look at them as a dream. I'm looking at it as an experience, and what that experience is symbolically representing and all that kind of stuff. But the dream state's more real than our waking state predominantly, and lucid dreaming and astral projection, bilocation, out of body, there's no difference in a dream. There's a really cool question here. It says, do ETs amplify your magic like angels and demons?
Let's pull it up.
Yeah. Yes, kind of. An angel and a demon to me are rather more of like a functions type thing. Like they kind of have their own territory. I would put ETs below angels or what people consider demons, to be honest with you, because they're a lot like us. They have free will. They have their own worlds. They have their own cultures. They have their own technologies, belief systems. So they could, if they're that type of entity, but typically speaking, I mean, we they're not going to be something like an angel and a demon that serves a certain function. There's a lot more free will when it comes to them. You can liken ETs a lot to the jinn. If anybody knows the history of the jinn or the lore of them, they're all different types of races. They all have their different belief systems. Some of them are Muslims, some of them are Christians, some of them are atheists, some of them follow Satan, some of them do all this kind of stuff. And it's just like us, but they're just not human. So an alien or ET is pretty much the same way. So if we have these abilities of astral projection and being able to manipulate our energy and go into different dimensions, like a deep meditative state or a hyper conscious state of like dreams or lucid dreaming or astral projection, remote viewing, etc., what makes you think that some other being adjacent to you that you might not be seeing can't do the same thing? So they may be able to help you with magic, but they're not an angel or a demon for sure. They most often, especially when it comes to my contacts and my experiences, it was outside of like the negative side of it and like the negative side of abduction experiences in my labs, the positive ones greatly outweigh the negative ones. And it took me a long time to get accustomed to the positive ones. They almost had to be like, listen, it's okay. Like it's fine. It did kind of, the positive ones was more about knowledge and gnosis and understanding myself and understanding the energy body and how to project myself into these certain areas. And it was more like being taught, or what they would say, like they called it remembering. So they would always be like, remember, like when they were talking about like, hey, remember that one time, so they'd always try to like have me remember basically. So they can definitely be guides and teachers, but angels and demons are on a different level of functionality. They serve a function within the mind of God rather than being a little living life form.
Yeah, absolutely. In the work that I was doing as the Oracle of the Old Ones for the Esoteric Order of Dagon a few years ago, I did a lot of experiments of contacting ETs in conjunction with ceremonial magic in a Lovecraftian sense. And it was really good at making things get really weird and crazy and pushing life in that direction. Did
Yes.
it directly help the magic I was doing at that time? No.
Yeah.
But overall,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to think, like, do some research within the ET phenomenon and like abduction experiences and missing time, as spiritual and mystical as it may seem. It's actually quite frightening and it's weird. Like where did 2 days go? Like, where was I? Or like remembering yourself in a oh, I was in my bedroom and now I'm standing in my kitchen. When did I get here? And when you're working with aliens and ETs, they're working at such a quasi physical, non-physical level that um it's it tends to have a harder effect with on our assemblage point here in matter. So time differential, weirdness and synchronicities or visions appear, your dreams will change. And it's not all positive. That I think the alien and the ET problem that we have here on the planet, and I call it a problem, is because there is so many of them that have their own agendas, and they're pulling the strings of so many different governments and militaries and even people like me. There's other people in the field that have these experiences, and we don't know really what they're working with. Thankfully, I do know what I've experienced, but it comes more from who's pulling whose strings, what's whispering what in people's ears, and really what's the information and what's the experiences happening. So it's not all positive when it comes to the ETs and aliens, or even the jinn, if you want to liken them to jinn. It's not always positive because of that free will thing. They all have agendas. They all have their own personalities.
Yeah. I think that it's important when we think about what you were saying earlier too, how our thoughts aren't all our own thoughts. And when we're trying to have spiritual experiences outside of doing rituals, maybe your own thoughts are something else. And your own thoughts are guiding you on a spiritual synchronicity towards something
Mhm.
because of what you're thinking about.
Right. And to me, the thought levels in people is like, yeah, we have our own conscious thoughts. We also have the thoughts of what I call like the internal programmer, and the internal programmer is like from doing things. So it's like trying to maybe it's not the best thing, or let's say you have ability to do something or an experience coming up, like you have this great job that you're about to have, and all of a sudden you do something that ruins it, or something happens. It's coming more from like the internal programmer side of things, like your thought patterns. But then there's external thoughts too, that might be a spirit, it might be a demon that you're working with, it might be an angel, it might be an ET. And it goes back to being, the more we're active within our energetic body and the more we have the energetic body gates open, we end up being more aware of where these sources are coming from. And when you're more aware of it within our body, we're now we know, like, oh, this type of energy, or this is this type of being, or this thought's not mine. I don't know whose thought this is, you know. And I don't know how many times people have woken up in the morning and you have a song in your head. Like, why do you have a song in your head? Like, you weren't even thinking about it, you just woke up and you have a song in your head. Like, why are you thinking about this 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 song? And next thing you know, you start thinking like, oh, why am I thinking about this song? But yet the song's still playing in your head. You have this conscious thought over this other thought that's coming in, is really how those layers goes, and we can kind of manipulate them and move them around and understand how to filter out what is ours, what is our guidance, what is this, what is that. I think that to me makes somebody a very powerful person.
For sure. What you were saying about the songs in your head reminded me of a talk about today, because there's so many cool things that happen, right? So I was getting really into working with the death current and the spirit, trying to decipher perhaps like what songs they would have listened to as part of a spiritual journey I was going on. And I had this idea like, okay, what about this song? And so I start listening to the song, and then I tell my mother about it. And it turned out that one of my family members had been playing that song for another one of my relatives when he was dying in the hospital. And the song was actually a very significant song, but it was just an idea that I had. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do a ritual to activate it.
Right.
The dead are very open to talking. They have a lot of
Yeah.
time.
Yes. I guess it says that I'm a bit laggy.
I have noticed that there are a little bit of lags. If there's any serious issues, I think we've at least resolved the audio issue this
I
time, I
think
think.
so.
So that's good. That's no one seems to be saying anything about that, so that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. No, it happens.
Yeah, it's like,
Anytime I'm talking about the alien ET stuff, the technology goes weird. I've been having very weird technological things happening.
yeah, that does happen.
Aaron
It
here in the chat says he gets images instead of songs, and he uses it to influence his artwork. That's fantastic. And honestly, if Aaron, if I were you, I'd be like, is this coming from me, or is it coming from like one of my guides, or something, some energy that's close to me, whatever it is, also kind of influencing that image, and if yes, it's coming from within our subconscious mind to our conscious mind, but did it fully come from you, or did it come from something else? Both are great. Both are fantastic, because especially if it's helping you influence your art and certain, whether it be music, drawing, whatever, that's huge. That's a positive. So I would say that's a positive energy thing. But when you get all these other voices inside your head and they're like, oh, I hate myself, I do all this, and they might not be yours, even though you're feeling them. And those are the ones to be definitely scary about.
Yeah, exactly, and it's important to realize that that isn't you putting those bad thoughts and bad ideas into your head, and to just not let it have power over you, because you're in charge of your body, not a
Yeah.
thought in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's
I
also
think what
a comment here that says, do you think some ETs could be egregores?
you're
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, people are going to kind of create things on the astral one way or the other. So I mean, a negative thought about yourself that you're also projecting in the astral, that could be also your own personal egregore. Call it Tim or Jill. You can give it a name, give it a personality. That also could be an astral construct in a sense like that. So yeah, I think some people could make ETs into them, but from my experience, they're much too real. And the abduction experiences, whether it be the My Labs or the positive ones, or even what's hidden from the public and the military, they're definitely not egregores. They're a very real, tangible, physical thing.
yeah, they're definitely not egregores, especially because this is the kind of stuff that often happens without us trying to do something.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's a blog on my website about Ishtar and the architects, as I call it. And it was a very pivotal experience to me because it was like I spent years thinking it was possibly just like a MyLab or a military or government-induced thing. But the more and more it kinda happened and the more interaction that I kinda had with that energy, I knew it wasn't. But when she first came to me, I was I didn't even know what it was, but I was in a dream state, but then all of a sudden I woke up, but I couldn't move, so I was kind of in a state of paralysis, but I don't even think it was like paralysis because I could feel like I was moving, but I wasn't moving. So it's like my energy body was moving, but my physical body wasn't moving. So maybe I was just hyper aware with that state of paralysis. But um, I woke up to feeling this like vibration throughout my whole body, and I couldn't move. And it was going from the feet to the head, feet to the head, feet to the head, and around me, I couldn't see anything, but like I demanded in my head that I'd be shown what's happening. And next thing you know, I could see these five beings standing around me, and they looked very alien. And they were kind of slender, tall, kind of lanky, gray looking beings. Four were short, and one was much taller. So it looked like this, like two short, and one tall standing in the middle, and they were kind of like all around me. And they all had their right hands out. So one gave off a very strong feminine energy, even though like you couldn't tell, but it was very strong feminine energy. And I was kind of afraid at first. I was like, this is horrifying. I was like, this is a horrible thing. And they had big eyes, but it wasn't. I didn't feel negativity. It was just that what was happening was kind of scary. And eventually, I kept hearing this very faint female voice in my head, and I could tell that it was coming from her. And she kept saying, "It's okay, it's okay." And it was very peaceful coming from her, but it was not making me feel peaceful. So I felt like that energy, that entity wasn't forcing me to feel peaceful. It was just like, no, just it's okay. Like stop, calm down, calm down. And so there was no force behind it, but I did feel the force of the energy movement up and down my body. And they kept speaking about love. And next thing you know, that after she stopped, I kept hearing this the same voice kind of keep whispering like Ishtar, Ishtar, and it was like very feminine and very soft, and it kind of threw me for a loop because I'm like, I knew know what Ishtar was at the time, somewhat. I knew the Babylonian connection and all this kind of stuff through history, but I seeing a being like that say Ishtar and explain, and I got such gnosis from this experience. I didn't do a ritual to do that. I didn't do a ritual to have that happen. It was in meditation. I was meditating for hours and hours and hours the day of, and I was sitting there balancing my energy body and getting myself right, if you will. And that just raised my frequency enough for these beings to kind of meet halfway and be like, hey, what's up? Even though it was unnatural to the physical.
That's super cool how you mentioned the energy giving you this kind of like almost paralysis type of shocking experience.
Mhm.
I've had something like that happen to me personally, and a lot of my clients that I counsel spiritually have had these same type of experiences as well. For me, it was like right when I first started getting into spirituality, when I was like 15, 16, I had so many experiences seeing aliens. So I would find all these documentaries, and I watched one that had said like everything is connected to everything else, and like teenage me is just like, whoa, like this is like the most profound fucking thing I have ever heard. Like this is I'm like this is it. This is
Mhm.
true. This is true and real. And then suddenly I like fell over onto my bed, like complete.
Mhm.
That's what it felt like, and it was painful. It was
Yeah.
very fucking strange, and it knocked me out, and then I was like, okay, like this is real. This is real.
Yeah, I have knowledge and all that kind of stuff that might have came in or something triggered in you that was like, oh my God, and it was just so much to overhang. Yeah, that's a good sign. Yeah. No, the random seizure is good. It's good. But
None
no,
of this is easy. That's the thing. Like that, like we laugh and we're like really silly, but that's because we go through things that are really scary, and
yeah,
we're okay because
it's
we're open to listening to the flow of the message. That's the idea.
yeah, and
Flow.
one thing I've learned is not to take anything, too seriously. It's good to laugh about things, and um, I look back and I read a lot of my old journals and dream journals, and I kind of like brings me back to the experience, and whether it be negative or positive, I always try to find some positive in it. Like if it's positive, I try to find some kind of positive in it. If it's negative, I try to find some positive in it. And it's just good to laugh about those kind of things because I've had those experiences where when you have those is that's awesome. I remember when I
Yeah.
came back from my death experience when I was 21. When I came back, it was really hard for me to stay in body, and I would just kind of like whoop, just drop out of body, and I could feel myself doing it because I'd be talking to somebody just like you and I are right now, and next thing you know, my body would whoop and kind of dip, and I would see myself move out and then back in, and people would be like, "What the hell was that? Like, what did you just do? Like, did you just fall asleep?" I'm like, "Oh no, no, don't."
Um, Sometimes the spiritual experiences can also manifest through nature as well. So it's not just like hearing stuff in your head, but it could be, for example, in my Vedic practices, I do a lot of work adoring Kali Ma, who's associated to the bees. And after that really started getting intense for me, I went outside and the tree outside my apartment was filled with bees. Like, it was the weirdest freaking thing. There were so many different kinds of bees. There was like at least 4 or 5 different kinds, and it was swarming, filled with bees.
Yeah.
Like, it was amazing. It was so beautiful. And I don't think I talked about this incredible experience that I had with one of my best friends not that long ago. We were in the cemetery, and she was just talking to me about some stuff that she was going through in her life. And we were having like a really just beautiful conversation about stuff. And she really opened up and talked about some problems that were happening. And the dead literally heard her and solved the problem like a miracle the next day. Like, there was no way
Mhm.
that it could have even happened like that. It was a true miracle, and we weren't asking the dead to help us. And this is a place, like, obviously here in New Orleans, like, lots of people do spells there, like, I've done spells there hella times, but we weren't doing that. We were just being there, being at one with the spiritual ecosystem, and miracles happen. The spirits are, like, always listening to you.
Yep. Most definitely. I guess they're saying that we have crackling audio. I don't know.
Huh,
Hmm. Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, everybody. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'm
weird.
sorry. Yeah, I don't know why. I can't hear it like that at all.
Yeah, neither. Same with
Hmm,
my side.
it
There
happens,
is a
right?
yeah.
We try every time to make it better, so
Mhm.
we'll figure it out. I guess
It's always
let's,
something.
there's always something with this. This is a real thing. When you're dealing with stuff that has such high frequencies, it will mess up your electronics quite a bit. Um, Hopefully that will be resolved. Let's look at some of these questions we got
Yeah,
here.
I like yeah. Do you believe there is power in ancient languages, Greek, Latin, Hebrew, Sanskrit, Coptic, and Aramaic? Yeah, 100%. When you look at languages, I mean, languages is kind of the lens that we express what we're seeing, feeling, and wanting in life, you know. And so we can't really negate any kind of ancient languages or any language because it's somebody trying to explain something. You know, if we even looking at like old cave drawings and you see those old little like drawings of weird shaped people or little alien figures or something that might look like a demon on a cave or something like that. It's them trying to explain through imagery what they're seeing because maybe they didn't have a language back then, you know. And when languages really started coming, we started using languages to do that. Really, I feel the problem with languages is when you look at the story of like the Tower of Babel is really when that is the thing that gave us that free will aspect of language, and it brought the changing to our dialects, you know. And having so many different languages express realistically the same things, the same emotions, the same feelings, the same kind of thoughts, it disconnects from that one thing we're all trying to explain. And then all of a sudden it shifts everything around, everything becomes really different. If everything was telepathy or we were doing like direct communication instead of language, it'd be much better. But all languages typically do have a lens, so to speak. Now, are there other ones that are typically better? Yeah. I think, you know, Sanskrit, I wish had more research done in the letters of it, like they do with like Aramaic and Hebrew and like Phoenician and more of like the Semitic languages. I feel there's a lot more magical work and magical practices hinged to those kind of things because it's more readily available. Arabic's kind of coming up. You know, that's why I like studying more of the Arabic and the Islamic stuff because the system of magic just seems very tight to me. And when I utilize it, it tends to work really well. And that's because 28 letters in the alphabet that they use, you know, the 28 divided by four, the four elements or the four directions is seven. And you got the seven planets that we work with directly within this astral reality, if you will. So I just feel it hinges. So when I look at researching different like ancient languages, and I've researched a few of them, I try to look at the ones that mathematically make sense when it comes to a magical system. And it, you know, Hebrew, if they're using 22 letters, to me that doesn't work as well as some of the other ones. Sanskrit has way more letters, but it's not something that I've attempted to be able to fit into a magical system. But there's a lot of magic in Sanskrit, um, you know, especially when it comes to like the old Vedic religions and the old polytheism and stuff like that, with multiple gods being able to do things. And back then, it was really just jinn, and you've seen that in that influx through like the Mamluk culture and you know, the Persians and stuff like that would have very similar things when it came to like even like the Sanskrit and the Hindu religions.
Sanskrit
Mhm.
every
Beautiful.
day. It is extremely powerful from trying so many of these different languages. And what I really like is looking at the idea of vibration, sound vibration, and how that energetically recodes reality
Hmm.
through the sounds, through sounds.
Hmm.
And so these ancient languages are created in this sense. It's like this.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a live show and create our own language and
Mhm.
try to turn it into something. You know, we could like, you know, like this word means this, you know, and we can align it as long as we're all on the same page of what we're talking about. You know, a tree now comes, you know, a different word, or the grass now becomes a different word, just like any other kind of languages. Um, and it's really the net that we're trying to explain. One of the classes that I do on my website is the esoteric alphabets class, and we go over a bunch of Semitic alphabets and even Latin and their use and what you're doing with them, and actually how we can get our own script. So I think the power of ancient language, especially oh my God, why am I would love to be able to have like a whole system based on cuneiform, you know. And I think the ancient languages, especially when it comes to the lore about spirits and our other dwellers in the other dimensions, I think those older, more ancient languages are probably explaining it a hell of a lot better than our modern ones.
Yeah, especially because a lot of this stuff passed like, misunderstood
Mhm.
very heavily, so there is still quite a lot of, mystery
Right.
that
And in my work, I use a lot of Arabic, and I might talk a lot about Arabic and some of the lore, but yeah, that's the Arabic language, and the I can't say that I'm like a sheikh in that religion, so I can't really speak on the terms, but I can definitely vouch that the use of the abjad or the Arabic is definitely a hidden gem that has been very well kept from the West, and for probably a good reason, because usually the West kind of takes things and waters it down and makes it not exactly as good as the other as it used to be. Yeah, Wolfbright's correct. Yeah, definitely.
yeah. I think that it's also important to understand what you're actually saying
Mhm.
if you are working with ancient languages,
Yeah,
because that way your intent is actually
yeah.
focused properly on what's going
Well,
on.
in meditation,
But then
yeah.
but that
I'm sorry.
can yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, that no, that's okay. But, once again, I was gonna say that's now we're going back into, like, doing rituals. We're trying to and Craig Williams writes about this a lot in his books, like, making life more sacred because the modern era has sa
Every,
desacralized life.
mhm, everything.
And
Our constructed and controlled reality is really there to separate us from any kind of connection to that stuff. While typically they keep it all from themselves. It's pretty horrible. But you're aware people are awake and they're awake into this kind of stuff. I mean, there's definitely a less of a hold for sure. There's a comment here too. Just what are your thoughts on the ET documentary about it? I think I'm not going to vouch for anybody that's on the documentary, because I have talked to a couple of them, and I'm not going to say good or bad about them because um, with that documentary, you know, when we watch those kind of documentaries, I'm always leery from people that are always constantly be like, "What if?" or "What if this?" or "What if that?" I feel it's like really misleading and usually not so much based on their experience. And I tend to, if somebody doesn't have their own experience, and I know um, a lot of them there have on that documentary, but if they don't have personal experience, it's really hard to talk about it. And what I like about that documentary is that it's actually coming from people that have had real experience with ETs or that kind of stuff. Whether they've talked to a whistleblower or they've talked to somebody that's already in the project still. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a huge thing for the world to know. Now, do I think that it's okay for the whole world to know every black project and secret project that's going on in military and government? No. And that is because everybody has free will, and sometimes they might be um, either doing it for the positive. They don't have all the stuff figured out. So I don't think everything should be outed, but we are in the stage of awakening right now where this alien ET information is really coming out. The military is talking about it. Right when something new comes out, they do come out with something else to try to like deviate from that, because there's another faction that doesn't want that information out. And then there's a faction that does want the information out. And it's part of that whole disclosure movement. I think Above Majestic probably doesn't get as enough credit as it should. I think they do a really good job with it though. So I will vouch that I do like it, but I can't agree with everything that they say. And I think that the concept of like, oh, draconians bad, reptilians bad, like these are, is there a lot of involvement? Yes. Is it sometimes negative? Very much so. But there's also ones that aren't. So it continues this weird profiling, almost like it's just another like, all those grays. You know what I mean? Like, there's it's we're talking we're talking about conscious beings that have free will to do it. Do they play into the military and our government factors? Yes, and a hell of a lot longer than people would imagine. Ever since there's ever been a religion or a belief system on this planet, you can guarantee that it was coming from them. They are. They are. They got a lot of time. When you think about it, if you're outside of time, if we're outside of our linear time, think about all the things you could really do. I mean, you're just going in and out at various times. I've had experiences where I could have swore I fell asleep, and I remember looking at the clock, and it was, like 10:20, and next thing you know, I feel like I've just been sleeping for 4 hours, and I woke up and it's 10:20. So it's what happened in that 4 hours of missing time, or what happened in that weird effect of stuff. You can be super busy for sure.
To force spiritual experiences to happen, it's easier to open yourself up to messages, to synchronicities by just opening up your experiencing from your senses, because your senses are controlled by your ego, your desires, the things that are like these instinctual things that may not be the best thing for you. They could be things that are picking up on patterns from your past life karmas that are trying to drag you down. So you have to use a lot of discernment when it comes to these things, but open your mind up to the idea that, like, yes, these miracles can happen. Yes, some profound synchronicity can tell me, yes, like these choices of learning something new are good for my life. For example, I am being guided on to something more, and there is more meaning to the world. The most important thing is thinking, like, are the things that are happening to you actually helping you? Is it making you more healthy? Is it helping you think about things in a different way? And that can be really scary for people, because there's so many people where everything they think is a product of the modern world brainwashing and conditioning them. And it's
Yeah,
really, it can be very, very frightening to those people,
right.
especially with people being awakened to all these things, especially with ET stuff
Mhm.
constantly being in the mainstream media now.
Yeah. And there's so many layers of it, and that the alien and ET phenomenon has been very popular, and it's gotten popular over the years, and there's huge movements about it, and the UFO community is full of trying to find the answers, and they're not looking in the right spots. A lot of times they're not looking in the spots because they're too busy looking at the sky. They're too busy looking at, these projects and all that kind of stuff. Like, okay, what can we do to actually be like these things? Like, what can we do to do that? And it's really all about, again, the energy body, what we're doing with our energetic body overall. Um, there's a really good question here. It says, do you believe there is a difference in the nature of free will for ETs and the free will of humans? Not at all. Free will is free will. It's going to be the same for Jinn, ETs, humans. You just do what you want. It is free will. Now, is free will God's will? No, not at all. Is angels and demonic functions? They don't really have free will. They have what they do. That's what they do. But when it comes to us having free will, the ETs and all them have the same exact kind of thing. One of my contact experiences, and when I was kind of just discussing things with one of my contacts, uh, he said one time that free will is a mistake. And the reason why free will has been a mistake is because it gives the conscious mind the ability to make decisions that may not always be in alignment with the best. And ever since he said that to me, I was just like, "Well, that's really hard to deny." You know what I mean? Because we can always see the difference in the change with the choices we make in life and the free will choices that we do. Sorry, my dog's trying to get the cat right now.
He's really
But
cute.
yeah, he's cute. But it's,
Mhm.
the free will, even in my mind, free will is also a mistake. Like, ever since he has said that to me, I can't really get that out of my head. So it's the same, but it doesn't mean that we're all using it for the better.
Yeah, because we're hurting the world.
Yeah,
That's why, like, just to help what you were saying into a
yeah,
positive direction.
yeah, and
Yeah.
one of the things that this was years ago. My God, like making me feel old, but this I was on this um old podcast, rather popular back around like 10, 12 years ago, like around the 2012 time frame, 2011, 2012, maybe even before that. And we were talking about certain techniques in meditation, and one of the things that I brought up was really is when you're doing like meditation and energy work, there's certain techniques out in public now and on the internet that they talk about, like feeling how you feel and bringing it in. And yes, I agree to all that, but they kept saying to just like push it out your feet into the earth, like just push it out into the earth, push it into the earth, just release it into the earth or release it out into in front of you, just release it out of your body. And I'm sitting there going, like, this is you like proverbially shitting on the earth. Like this is you being like, here's all my problems, shove it into the earth and you deal with it. This is toxicity on a great degree, and if you're pushing it out into the spatial awareness of your field, now you're just throwing it to other people. So it's like one of the things that we should do in meditation and when any kind of feelings and emotions that we have or energy work is just always send it above your head, send it out and up vertically, rather than horizontally or like into the earth, because if we're just pushing everything into the earth, that's uh you know if we all did that in one day, I bet you any money there'd be an earthquake. Everybody just just shit, everybody. Yeah, it'd be really bad. Really
So
bad.
what can people do to help themselves in a positive way to open themselves up? Like people who are already awakened to these things, because we're not going to be wasting our time trying to force people to open their minds to things.
Right.
We're just doing what we can every single day to help everyone that is awake. So what can we do, like, on a
I
day-to-day basis?
I mean, the amount of benefit that taking 5 minutes a day in simple, like, meditation and decluttering the mind and analyzation of the thoughts, you know, is absolutely huge, and one of my classes, I talk about the levels of awareness and just understanding that on the first level of awareness, we're just thinking of our conscious thoughts and our problems and our daily things and all that stuff like that. And if you can at least take some time to allow those to come through your head and not pay attention to them, the 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 focus and the mental ability to be able to not get so caught up in life and be more of aware of the thoughts that are actually coming into your head. So you're just analyzing the thoughts in a sense, but not really analyzing, just seeing them like fish through water, And as long as you do that at least like 5 minutes a day, but doing meditation practice, mantras, reciting positive affirmations. I just have a new blog on my website about using affirmations in an I am statement um, as a form of mantra. So you're always like asserting these certain qualities. We have our thoughts in our head all day long, and even if you're silent, just walking around outside in a store, what have you, there's thoughts. And if we can take control of those thoughts and say, hey, I'm going to say this mantra or I'm going to say this affirmation in my head while I'm doing this, you're gaining control of your thoughts and kind of like shoving that energy in its place in a sense, and you're gaining control. Those little things, I think, is one of the biggest, I guess, self betterment things that people could do. But it's also a very spiritual thing to do because the higher entities or the higher beings, they don't nearly have as many as emotional or mental problems as humans do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your super
Mhm.
chat donation. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for supporting our work.
Thank you.
So, before we go, since we are really, really excited that people can pre-order your book, Asaya Calexa, now on your website.
Yeah.
That's linked in the description, thevioletgateway.com. Is there something from that book, like an energy visualization or some type of thing that you would like to talk to us about today?
Yeah, actually, sure. I'll do I'll kind of talk about the basic one because the basic technique is really the the biggest technique out of all of them, to be honest with you. If we look at our brain as a set of three things, we have if we look at it, it has like two lobes. We have a right side and the left side and the mid side. And if we see the right brain and the left brain, and what's in the middle is that pineal gland. It's kind of forms a triangle of the 3 points. And when we in meditation, or even before we go to bed, or when you feel your brain scattered, or you just feel like you're having these emotional shifts, take a quick minute and quickly close your eyes and just kind of take a couple breaths, but start visualizing a royal blue circle with the royal blue dot at the pineal gland. And I don't mean like visualize it like, a tattoo on your forehead. I mean like visualize it in the middle center of your head. Like if you draw a line through it, it's going to be right in the middle. And just start visualizing that royal blue circle with a royal blue dot centered in the center. You may see the circle kind of go to the right a little bit or to the left or kind of jiggle around. You want to just take time and balancing that in. And what that's basically doing is it's telling the subconscious mind through the conscious mind, because the subconscious mind is kind of like the conscious mind's bitch. It's just like you do this, and the subconscious will be like, okay, I'll do that. So when we do that, we're aligning our right brain and our left brain with the pineal gland, and kind of like aligning our thoughts of the physical world and the non-physical world into a better state. And I have a client that was having really bad anxiety one day, and they do a job where it's pretty interactive, and there's driving involved, and it's not good if they're having a massive panic attack. And she's never had one before. It was never a thing that happened. And they did this, and it went away. And there's actually some therapists and some kind of like social worker people too that have taken a lot of my classes that also apply that within their practice to certain people that they're helping, especially when it comes to people that might have schizophrenia or certain psychological disorders in certain wards. So it's really cool seeing people kind of apply that stuff, and it works really well. And that's probably one of the best things that people could do out of that book on a daily basis, just to be able to start balancing the brain and knowing that our thoughts can either be very physical. We could be very focused on the physical, like, oh, my laundry, oh, this, or we could be like, oh, lofty. We want to be able to bring it into the center. And that symbol, which is actually the alchemical symbol of the sun, of course, the circle with a dot, the sun. Really, the circle with the dot, what it's meaning in more of a light or hyperspace type language, or an archetypal language, is it's the circle is our awareness, and the dot is our consciousness or our focal point. And if we're balanced in the circle of our awareness, or our magic circle, if you will, we're going to balance both sides into a better thing. And you might feel this happen right away. Might take a couple of days. If you do it at night before you go to bed, you get crazy deep sleep. That is an effect from it. You won't remember anything, but you'll have really nice sleep. If you do it in the morning, you might notice that your tasks are being betterly done. You might feel more focused. You might have a little bit more flow within the day. But it's a very simple exercise that I've seen work for a lot of people. Yeah,
Fantastic.
it's a good one.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with everyone. And so, if you want more of Vermilion's teachings, please be sure to check out Asaya Calexa. I put a link to it in the chat, and I also have a link to his website, The Violet Gateway, in the video description. So please be sure to pick up a copy. I just edited it, and it's going to be out soon.
Mhm. Yeah.
Excited.
No, and it's absolutely
It's
beautiful.
awesome.
And all the
It's
weird,
beautiful. It's
all the
gorgeous.
punctuation and grammar stuff that I missed originally has all been fixed thanks to you. So I appreciate that. Very, very good job.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I do want to just kind of highlight Aaron's response here. It says, my dot is more red than purple.
Mhm.
just try to force it into a violet color. And when you it's good that you see the color as different than what I told you. The That's an indication of, if the dot is where our focus point of our consciousness is and it's red, take a look at like root chakra stuff or things that are happening in your physical world or your conscious physical reality that's connected to the root. But since it's at the center of the head, just force it. Just force it into a royal blue circle. Don't do it violet. Don't do it purple. Just try to exert in your mind the color over it. Even if you can't see it as blue, just be like, you're blue, you're blue, you're blue, you're blue. Try to force it on it, But the biggest part of the whole thing is not even the color, it is the balance. Make sure the dot's just centered in it and it's just kind of floating there. If you see it in 3D versus 2D, in 3D, it's a sphere. It's like a sphere around a sphere. Best to see it in 3D, but the 2D works just as good.
Thank you. Fantastic. And
Yeah.
so all of our links are in the description of this video. Vermilion also has a YouTube channel, and he has been updating videos on it. So definitely go ahead and subscribe to that too. It's
Mhm.
also linked, the Violet Gateway, and all of our different services. If you want direct help from us with all the different things that we do, which is a lot of different stuff to help you through these very strange times, check out all of our links below. And thank you so much for joining us today. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel if you're new. Give the video a thumb up, and we will work on fixing any technical issues for
Mhm.
next time. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
See you,
Bye.
everybody.